Hello, everybody. I'm going to spend a few minutes with you telling you how I might approach this prompt, this assignment, if I was in your shoes. So, what I learned long ago was you have to spend time with the prompt. So, I make sure I know exactly what I'm being asked. So, it says, tell us your story. What unique opportunities or challenges have you experienced throughout your life as a reader and writer that has shaped who you are today? First of all, this prompt sounds an awful lot like what your college essay prompts might sound like. And I also see it says, tell us your story. Okay, so I'm writing a story. I'm telling a story that's about my life and what unique opportunities or challenges. So that's nice balance there. So it could be a unique opportunities or challenges, or both, I'm assuming, have I experienced throughout my life as a reader and a writer that has shaped who I am today. So for me, this would be so many things rushing through my mind at this point. I wouldn't even know where to begin if I were to. I can't just start writing. I'm going to have to do some thinking and really trying to mull this over and think how I'm going to approach it, because I want to share my story and how it's shaped who I am today. So then the next thing, of course, I look at is the task. So I look here and I see that this reader's autobiography, the final essay, which you're going to be writing in that bottom box, needs to be at least 1,000 words. Okay, for me that would be probably easy because 1,000 words isn't all that much. So my task, and I know it says at least 1,000, so that gives like no sky's the limit. But I also know that a teacher's not going to want to read a book, and so I want to keep it around that 1,000 word, maybe 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 at the most, because I want to, I want to keep it within a reasonable distance or a reasonable limit that they're suggesting here. So the first thing I would do is get a piece of paper and I would start brainstorming, or what we call here reckless writing. I would just start writing down everything that I could think of that might work for this, even though some ideas might maybe start formulating in my mind already. I want to write down a bunch of things, because even though I might have an idea, something else might pop out, because that's what happens when I'm doing a reckless write. I'm just allowing things to come out without worrying about if it's good or bad or correct or anything. I'm just getting things out of my head. So I'd have probably gone all the way back to my first memories of reading. And quite frankly, I've always read. I don't remember when I learned how to read. I've always read, but I know that can't be true. I didn't come out of the womb reading. And so I would be thinking about my experiences with my mother reading to me. I have older sisters and they would read. I would come from a family of readers. So we've always read, so to speak. So I guess I could talk about some of those early memories and how that might have shaped who I am today, because I'm sure it did, because I started out as a reader. But I wouldn't want to settle. I would want to keep generating ideas. So I'd probably go into my school years, starting, right at the beginning in kindergarten and going forward from there, and just going over all the different challenges maybe I had. I didn't have a hard time reading, but if I did have a hard time reading and the teacher helped me overcome some of those challenges, I might want to write about that and the opportunities that opened for me. And so as I was going through my mind looking at this prompt, I ended up landing in 11th grade, my junior year in high school, because I was not a good high school student. I struggled in high school, and it wasn't because I didn't have the capability. It was because there was just a lot of things going on in my life. There were a lot of challenges that were outside of school, and so school sometimes had to take a second tier in my life. It wasn't necessarily always my priority, and so I did fine. I was always, I played sports in high school, so I never had to worry about being ineligible. But I certainly wasn't living up to my potential by any stretch of the imagination. And I remember in the 11th grade, my English teacher's name was Dave Goldsmith, and he certainly wasn't a teacher of the year type at all. He was actually one of the teachers that the administrators wanted to get rid of. But for some reason, Mr. Goldsmith and I connected. And I loved the way he approached literature and the way he talked about literature. And so even though I was struggling in my classes and didn't enjoy doing work in school, he challenged me to sink deeply into novels. And I found that I really, really enjoyed that. And the one book that really resonated with me more than anything else of all books was by William Faulkner, called As I Lay Dying. And that's a challenging book. And reading it on my own and reading it with him and the discussions that we had in class really just opened my eyes to the power of the written word and the power of literature. And so once I got through that book and the other books we read in that class, I came out of my junior year. Now, I wouldn't write about a magic story. There wasn't anything like, wow, all of a sudden I became, the best student in the world. I didn't. But it showed me a path or an idea that really intrigued me, just this notion of the power of the written word and the power of literature. And although it didn't necessarily shape me in my senior year or even in my first part of my college years, it eventually led me to being an English teacher. Because when I went to college, my major was business. I was going to be an accountant, and I was good at accounting. I enjoyed the classes, but I decided that I couldn't see myself spending the rest of my life sitting in a chair doing that kind of work. And so I said, well, what do I love? What does something I do that I just would do for free? And I struggled with that, but I finally came to this notion of reading, which is weird, right? You can't make a living reading. I guess you could be an editor or something like that, but that would be another job that was sitting behind a desk. And so I thought, well, I think that I'm going to teach English. I think I'm going to be an English teacher. And so those challenges I had in high school, I would start with those. I would probably give a background of how I struggled in high school, how I wasn't necessarily engaged, how maybe things outside my life were a little chaotic at the time. And so high school was a real challenge for me. But the opportunity came from this kind of teacher who was not necessarily, like I said, somebody that the administrators would, or even my parents would have wanted me in his class. But he provided me an opportunity to see life through a different lens, through a new way of looking at things. And that experience with the book As I Lay Dying, and some of the other books that we read in that class that I would also write about. And then I would write about how that actually shaped me, not only that led me to be an English teacher, but he shaped me, and these stories and these books shaped me into how I approach literature with you guys, with my students today, with my the way I want you to appreciate and understand literature. So my story would be very personal, but it would focus in on that key moment. I mean, I would give some framing, about my life as a reader, but the heart and soul of this story would be my interactions with this kind of misfit teacher and reading of the books that we read, especially As I Lay Dying, and how that turned something inside my mind from somebody who couldn't to somebody who could. And then I would take that and extend that story out to the decision to become an English teacher, and ultimately how it shapes how I approach teaching. Even today, all these years later, Mr. Goldsmith, who has passed away now, is still, in a way, through me, influencing students. And so I would really give you details. I would not be giving you broad generalities. I would be giving you very specific details about my experience. It would be my story. Okay, it would be my story. And it would start in that early time and it would end with me today. So I challenge you to really go through your memory, spend time in reckless writing, spend time in honing that draft, and then when you finally get to your reasoned writing, that's the final one that you're going to really take your time on and turn it into something that you can be proud to turn in. Not just for a grade, but just proud that you could tell your story in this way. So I hope this helps, and I look forward to reading your papers.